Hello, welcome to the session. Diversity and equality, inclusion within the community and the world. I'm Martin Catherall. I'll be the moderator. Let me introduce the panel. Well, I'll actually leave the panel to introduce themselves, but we'll start off with Shantira. Can we start with Shantira, and then we'll go around the table. They'll probably do a better job of introducing themselves than I will. Please type your questions into the chat. As they come through, I will feed them through to the panel. Thank you. Go ahead, Shantira.
Hello, I am Shantira Chapman. I'm the president of Powher Consulting, working out of Houston, Texas, and I am a culture curator. I work with my clients to build strong cultures through interactive workshops and seminars, and we help to, really allow our clients to live their truths represented in their mission and vision. And my background has been in consulting for over 20 years. I've worked as a strategic management consultant for NASA for 13 years and moved into the oil and gas industry as a organizational change and development consultant, and now out doing on my own, working to build strong cultures. I am really excited about the discussion this morning and looking forward to it.
Okay, thanks a lot, Shantira. Can we move on to Homer, please?
Hello, everyone. My name is Homer McEwen, and I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I've been in the IT field for 25 years. I've been a database administrator for over 23 years, and I'm known in the past community as Killer DBA. I've combined my compassion with music and database technology, and I make music, and I've performed at several past events, which is a lot of fun, and I'm glad to be a part of this panel today.
Okay, thanks a lot, Killer DBA. Can we hear off Adriana, please?
Hi, my name is Adriano da Silva, and I am from South Florida, where I am one of the user group organizers at the Microsoft Data and AI South Florida, as well as at the South Florida Power BI. Professionally, I am a data AI consultant. I've been engaged on these duties for over the past 15 plus years. And I'm honored to be here at the Diversity, Equality, and Inclusion, and looking forward to make contributions not only on the event, but also going forth to potential layout and supporting frameworks that will lead to a more diverse, equal community.
Oh, okay, thanks very much for that. And now, can we hear off Denisha?
Yes. Hi, I am Denisha Malone. I was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. I currently live in San Antonio, Texas, after being in Seattle for a little bit. I'm well known in the Microsoft world as the Power BI queen. I've been working as a business intelligence architect slash consultant since my 2017 graduation. And I've recently started my own company called Data Harmony. It's a business intelligence consulting company that helps small businesses modernize their data practices. Outside of my technical career, I sit as the VP of strategy for the Black Data Processing Associates of Memphis. I co-lead the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Past Virtual Group, and I co-lead the Power BI Women Virtual User Group, all while mentoring college students as they transition into their professional careers.
That's great. And we do have one more panelist, Kellen Potvin Gorman. I'm not sure if she's with us at the moment. I don't see her on screen. If she comes in shortly, then I will introduce her. Until then, maybe we could start with, I don't know, we'll start with Killer DBA, if that's okay. And do you want to maybe give us a bit of an overview of your, I don't know, your experiences or views just generally on diversity and equality within the community and the world? And as questions start coming in, I will feed them through to the panel. Take it away, Killer DBA.
Awesome. So I think that social media has given us an awareness and insight to a lot of different cultures, and we're seeing an awareness right now with the state of the world for sure. But in my experience, growing up in Atlanta, Georgia, particularly in the South, um, you see a lot, you hear a lot, and a lot is, handed down from generation to generation on how to behave and in different directions you should go. But I think I was lucky to just have my an interest in computers, and um, a lot of my peers were not given the same opportunities, fortunate to to you know have those particular insights and whatnot. But I say all that to say that in my personal experience, I have experienced some of it may be hindsight and didn't know it was going on at the time. Maybe biases, or you can call it discrimination. But discrimination can mean a lot of things. It can, there's not just discrimination of, culture and the color of your skin, but also ageism and, you know, um, gender and, all these things. I did experience what I like to call personality type discrimination. I think I'm a people person, very bubbly, and I like to. Uh, I have a lot of friends. I was even called at one corporation the mayor of this huge corporation because I was so friendly and knew a lot of people. And if you have someone in leadership who, for whatever reason, they don't think that's a good thing, that can cause issues. So there's a lot of different facets and areas in which biases and discrimination can happen. And I think that there's an awareness and things will get better, but we're just experiencing cause and effect, especially in the Black communities, because we were, segregated and oppressed from things. I mean, we're talking housing, schooling, voting rights, and all these things that caused generations to not have tools and proper um, access to certain things. So anyway, you have a smaller pool when it comes to Black people and participating in things such as pass, because of the smaller pool in corporations, the smaller pool in leadership, the smaller pool on the board of directors of representation from a diversity aspect. And the history with in America, particularly the South, between Blacks and people in power, which is mostly whites, is a very interesting, unique thing that has caused us to have things like this, panels and discussions today, which I think are necessary to cause awareness and, just try to propel us forward to include, because to be honest, a society, in my opinion, is better off if women are created equal, and we can use their brain power to help us as a society, and people from different cultures, as opposed to segregating and being oppressing a person because of their beliefs or where they're from or the way they look.
Could
So
that was great, Killer DBA. Sorry to bust in. I said I'd feed the questions through. I don't want to go off on too much of a
yeah,
tangent. Probably one of our audience members has recognised Denisha, and they've kind of asked why did you create the diversity and inclusion virtual group at PASS? And and can you tell us a bit about that, please?
Yeah, so well, I didn't actually create it. The group idea was introduced to me with my by my now co-leader Andrea Masher, and she's actually presenting at PAS. We're both really active members of the community, and we noticed that PAS didn't the community didn't have much to offer when it comes to supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we talked about the group and what we can offer the community, and then Paz did a really good job with setting us up with a virtual group and giving us the resources we need to have meetings and things like that. The goal of the group is really for all who are underrepresented in the tech community to have a place to come and talk about things that they've experienced, or just hear from other people like them And so we want to have speakers that fit into those descriptions, like Black, of course, women, LGBT plus, and et cetera. So we're looking for, it's really hard. Leading this group, I've noticed that it's hard to find speakers that fit into those descriptions, but I know they exist. So with this group, I want to bring those speakers to light and bring those professionals that fit those descriptions that are underrepresented to light. So we have somewhere to talk and share our experiences and our knowledge and just make everyone in the DEI community feel comfortable. We've had a lot of good feedback. We've had 2 meetings so far. There's a virtual group, so if you're interested, and it's on the PASS website, you can go and join and see when we're having things, but we're not doing anything in December. But we've had 2 really good meetings. There were a lot of people there, some good feedback. So I'm excited for 2021. Thank you, PASS, for giving us this.
That's great, Denisha. Thanks. Thanks. There's obviously a lot of virtual groups around the world, and that's a great addition. I've just seen Kellen come in and join us there. Welcome, Kellen, to the event. All the other panelists have been around and introduced themselves. I wonder if maybe you do the same. And after you've introduced, maybe you could take one of our questions that's come through, just a general one about your perspective about inclusion.
Sure. My name is Kellen Gorman. I seem to be having a week of Mondays here, so apologies. I am a SME on Oracle on Azure. I know you probably don't think those exist, but they do. And I've been with Microsoft for the last 2.5 years. I am probably better known in the Oracle world than I am in the Microsoft world, but I started a lot of women in tech and diversity groups there, a lot with STEM education. And I'm very happy to be here. And then the question, inclusion. Inclusion is an interesting challenge for me because I am a white woman in tech. So my focus has always been on women in tech because I'm one of those that have seen the women disappear. You know, about 40% of women disappear after about 4 years. And going to so many different events and speaking, for me, diversity and inclusion really kind of this epiphany happened when I was at an Oracle event. And 3 of my friends came up and they like welcomed each other and said, fellow Black person. And I looked around and realized that they were the only 3 Black people at the entire event. There are like 5,500 people there, and I'm looking around, and there's nothing like that will humble you and, you know, kind of make you realize just how privileged you are in the world when you recognize how alone they were in their culture in technology, and that how little opportunities there are, that there's not as much diversity as we would like. And when I came to the Microsoft community, I was so pleased with how many more women there were, because it had gone from 7% up to a number that I thought was achievable. We could actually get there. And then I had almost the exact same experience with 2 other friends and realizing that we still have such a long way to go. So inclusion to me is when we start having numbers that match what it is in the world at large.
That's great, Kellen. Thanks for introducing yourself. Now, I've got to apologise. I missed out Hasham. I am really sorry about that. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and maybe give us your perspective on inclusion and equality as well.
Thank you. No problem. And I would like to thank, first of all, PASS for providing this panel discussion so we can freely discuss what are the community issues within the data community, and people outside the world interact with the data community. They can come up with the question and they can actually ask the question without any fear. And I would like to thank Denisha for leading the efforts of DI group, which is a virtual group at PASS she's leading. Thank you, Kellen, for putting out the effort to join us today. Actually, she had a technical issue, but we are glad that she made it up. And thank you, everyone, Shantera, Homer, Adriano, and Marty for this session. So let me introduce myself. My name is Hasham Niaz. I have been into the database and BI world for almost 15 years, and I have done like many different Power BI implementations. I have been to the Power BI community since its inception, even before when the product was not even named as Power BI. So I was part of that particular advisor group team as well. I'm leading Power BI group in Dubai and based in Asia, in Karachi as well. We have Microsoft Power BI World Tour coming to Dubai last year, and I've been leading PASS group as well, and I have leading the effort of PASS Summit 2020 program committee analytic tracks. So I was the track leader for analytics team as well. So I have a lot of experience around this, but the main thing which I would personally feel, which separates from all other thing is like what we are doing for the community throughout this year. Since like past 10 years, I have been constantly very much at the top of the community, have top award for Power BI, which is Emerald Award. I got this in 2019. Then I have a Microsoft Community Contributor Award in 2018. I got Ruby Award as well. So I have a lot of things for the community, and I always stand up and speak up about the community, even if I had to go back and against my company policy or the corporate policy, you have to stand up against. So these are things. So my perspective about equality is like, it is not like if somebody is living two person with the same skill set, same skills area, same experience, they should be paid similar. But you have to think about different weights as well, like in which demographics they are living. Like if one person might be living in US, where he might be paying 20-25% of tax, but the other person might be living in a different demographic where he has to pay a 30% or 45%, up to 45% tax as well. So how we need to manage those things as well. Even those, you cannot set the parameters as fixed, like you need to be flexible, you need to be proportional as well with the equality. You can just not slice equal pieces and give it to everybody, because if you think about past, like for the speakers as well, I'm giving your perspective here, like for speakers, like if somebody is an international speaker traveling from abroad, they will have a different package for that particular speaker. But if somebody is a local speaker, then you have a different package for that speaker to accommodate their needs as well. So this is like, you need to take professionality as well when you are discussing the equality. It's not like just slice everything into equal pieces and then everybody will be happy. You need to look around different, like age, their experience, their expertise, and different things as well into consideration, where they are living, the lifestyle as well, how they can balance their lifestyle as well. Okay, that was my perspective. Maybe we can ask other panelists as well what their perspective is.
Yeah, that's really interesting, that, Hasham. Can we move on to Shantira? We've got a question come through. I think this might be good to aim at Shantira, but feel free to carry on from the last question if you want to. How do you handle microaggression inside the workplace? Have you got any views on that or perspective?
I do. Microaggressions, and for anyone who really just kind of wants to know what it is or haven't heard the term, because I've run into a few people who didn't really understand what microaggressions are. I like to describe them as little insensitivities. So small insensitivities and insensitive comments that people may make about someone. Like, for instance, for me, I tend to get a lot of, oh my God, you're so articulate. Or you're not like, I've actually been told in the workplace that I'm not like other Black people. And so those are definitely aggressions, microaggressions that people will just put out there that may be really quick to say, but the impact that they have on someone is, amazing. Being told that being surprised that I can actually complete a sentence is offensive, or that I am not like other Black people. Those types of things tend to be very offensive, and they have an impact that lasts long after the 2 seconds that it may have taken someone to say it. And so how do you handle those things is addressing them. A lot of times people would say, you just be quiet or you just let it go, but those things tend to fester and snowball. So if you don't tell someone that they may have offended you in one way or another, then they won't know. So if you know better, you do better, right? So you tell someone, hey, I didn't like how you said that I'm not like other Black people, or why are you so surprised that I'm articulate? Those things make me feel as though, you know, Black people aren't supposed to speak well, or, you know, what is a typical Black person to you? So just explaining to them how it made you feel. And actually, when you're in the workplace, also saying you may want to refrain from saying that kind of stuff in the future, because it could get you in some trouble, or someone could report you, or so on and so forth. And I'm not saying do this in public. I'm saying take someone to the side and let them know that that was inappropriate, and, you know, allow them the opportunity to be the better person and apologize, and then they can move forward, kind of checking themselves and checking their behavior, and hopefully not bringing those types of things to the forefront in the workplace again, and maybe not in general, because a lot of times people don't know what they're saying and the impacts that it has on other people. And once you give them that opportunity to do better, most people will do better.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right there about most people want to do better. I mean, we all want to do the best we can. Has anyone got any more perspectives on that? I guess we'll move over to Adriano. I'm sorry, I may have pronounced that incorrectly. If you want to carry on with that, but also if you after you finish, maybe you just want to give us your general perspective about inclusion in general.
Sure. First of all, thank you. And I see the other panelists have made great points. So I would like just to, instead of just repeating more, to a couple items that I observed that many people do not consider is the simple fact that for them to be and or belong to a specific race, gender, etc., they forgot something very basic, that it just happens to be statistical fact that you are who you are, born where you are, a male, female, etc. It's only because, how can I say, statistically speaking, for you to be the person you are, born in that location, on the country, male, female, etc., people forget that it's a matter of fact that you happen to be there. And then I feel that many times people are just programmed to accept and embody what's thrown to them by others, not only the media, but also other people. And they take that to heart, and they forget to start asking simple questions, as such as, how does it, the very fundamental, why should I do this, or how can I say this? By starting to excluding people because they don't look like you, they don't talk like you. And the second part I would like to talk about, or just point out, is the part of contribution being part of it. In other words, how does a group of people can come in and start to evolve and make a contribution? So one of the things I hope to make a contribution is by not only have those groups that has a diverse group of presenters, but also going out there and opening the group to individuals who has absolutely no experience. Going out there and reach out to different communities and trying to bring them to be part of it. Because for a person to go there and become, whether it's a speaker or a professional in a certain area, people many times may be forgotten that not everybody has the same access to schooling. Granted, everyone or many people, principally in the US, may be able to go to school, but the type of school and level of education you get is not the same. So the idea is also assist them on nurturing, right? So you can also bring your levels higher and bring to an equal level with others. But that will allow them to ramp up and get into more exposure to be able to contribute and assist the community and the world itself. That's what I would say regarding to diversity, equality, inclusion in the aspect of not blocking people, but supporting, nurturing, and helping even those who may be have less access or less foundational support on it, whether we're talking about in science, math, arts, etc., as well as technology and or specific technology in the Microsoft world. So I hope that, the event, as well as those attending the panel, I see many of them making contributions for that. And I hope that in the future, we can see some frameworks also from past, who I see has some groups working on it, but also maybe we can create something concrete that will bring and influence more of those from other communities, but also not forgetting those who are on a position where they are the majority. So people cannot forget that, because you can only really achieve if people also do not feel discriminated just because they are, they are Caucasian and male. They also shall be included, so we all can, come up and others groups can also catch up.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
an excellent point. Yeah, I might just drill into that a bit further, because I think I might have a little bit of experience of that myself. I moved over to New Zealand about 20 years ago. My wife's a New Zealander, and obviously I hadn't been to school there. I didn't know much about the history of the place or anything, but there was a lot of drive for people to get into like the Maori culture. And like native New Zealand culture. Now, I went along and did myself a 1-year free course about that, and actually found that it gave me a good perspective of the culture in the country and understanding. And it was an excellent point you made there about just getting involved. For me, that was a way to get involved. So, is that something you'd like encourage? I don't know, people to do, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the idea when I mentioned about the creating pathways to individuals, regardless even of your background. Of course, we have to understand that some individuals, principally the minorities, are less fortunate in terms of access, preparation, but nurture them to be able to accomplish and achieve. So, and the other groups that are, let's say, on the advantageous side, to understand what's the gap and what's happening here, so they don't, and include them also to participate, engage, and contribute to the community, where, as you mentioned, it can be a factor of a cultural by living in a specific place. But also, if we look at the communities, the technical communities, it should include all and stop more of that exclusion, because that exclusion can also be just by clicks. Many people may not include that, but if you look, even some events that you have in the community, you're going to see a certain profile of individuals, and you see a lot of the groups do try to truly engage all presenters to be part and be present, but there are groups that are still excluding others for either personal preference, by giving more talk time, and even totally excluding individuals from an event. And that's what I mean by the community understanding that.
Great. Thanks a lot. Hey, someone's come in for, I think this is directed at Homer, Killer DBO there. Where do they get one of those shirts? Bit of a nice comment there. But on that note, Homer, maybe you could pick up that and give us your perspective on what we just talked about.
So yeah, I like what Adriana was saying, because exclusion has been a big part going way back. I mean, and I don't want to go too far back. We can go back to when blacks were emancipated in America, but I won't do that. But that is a cause and effect that I was talking about that has, unfortunately, in my opinion, to this day, caused a lot of gaps in access to schools and different types of tools that are opportunities that could even be presented to allow a person who is in an environment that is not considered one that can allow a person to thrive from and especially in technology. It could give them I lost my train of thought in that right quick. anyway, but I was just thinking that, you know, just back on what Adriana was saying, that there is, I think, a need to just give those opportunities, give people a chance who were brought up in environments that don't particularly promote going in the field of technology and coding and things like that, because I think that if they're exposed to it more, then you'll see that these, you know, people in these less unfortunate environments can thrive just as well, and it'll just help all the way around. It's just like the housing community. They stopped this program for landlords where you had a voucher for people to only live in one area. They called it Section 8. And what that does is it festers and allows generations to only live in one area. And what they do now is they allow, if a person needs help from, you know, with vouchers from a government assisted program, they can choose where they want to live in hopes that they are around people, and the kids can go to school with, you know, people who have different ideas, not just one idea that, hey, the government can help us and we can just stay in this one spot and not progress. So yeah, there's a lot there with just exposing people who are in, because you only accept the environment that you're brought up in unless you know, have forward thinking and, you know, want to do something different. And it's hard to get out of certain situations if you're brought up in a certain environment and you're taught certain things. Real quick, the t-shirt on the back, it says, I'm putting your bits where your bite should be. Anyway.
That is cool. That is cool.
And
I just,
yeah.
yeah,
They can go,
they
can look me up and get the shirt on.
Hey, Martin.
Yeah.
I definitely want to, you know, kind of go forward on what Homer was saying. There's a lot of numbers behind.
I was actually going to come to you next, Calvin. So take it away.
Okay.
Carry on.
Access to technology is a big deal. We realize that when you start talking about poverty and numbers just across the board, there is a 50%, you know, difference between those households that have 30,000 incomes versus 100,000 incomes on what technologies they have in those homes. And when we start talking about your access to a smartphone versus a computer and multiple technologies in the home, such as tablets and everything else, it really impacts the ability for children to learn and be consumers versus actual creators of technology, and how this impacts our world when we start talking about the next generation of technologists. For my children, when they were interested in taking like a Java class, they had to go to a vocational school. Now, my kids, of course, were not big on this. They were like, that's where the kids go who can't graduate from high school. I don't know what this says, you know, about the next generation of IT when you find out they have to go to a vocational school to take technical courses. And it's even worse when we start talking about public schools and what opportunities they have versus kids that may go to private schools and have more access, not only to educators, because you do need those people who are educating them correctly. And when I would talk to those educators within public schools that would say, I can format a USB drive, I can teach them Office, but that's about it. How do we get our public school system to understand the differences, like yourself that said, I could go take this year class and learn about even, you know, the local culture of the area versus learning about technology and getting access to it to find out it's an opportunity for a career. We know that there's, you know, right now 1.4 million technical jobs that are open. We know that there's 20,000 CS graduates every year. We don't have the people to fill that. And yet we're still telling our kids that are coming out of high school, you need to learn biology, you need to learn history, that these might be opportunities for our, you know, your secondary education, but we're not introducing them to technology in the same way. And I'm very interested in what the other panelists think about this and how that impacts when we start talking about cultural, race, and everything else with our next opportunity of breaking those boundaries and getting more diversity in tech.
That's great. That's great, Callum. I'll come to Denisha next, if that's all right. Maybe get your thoughts on that, Denisha. I do have a question to come in. I want to particularly put to you. However, can we just just for the minute carry on? Maybe get your thoughts on the education thing that Kellen's talked about, and when you want this question, because it is quite a long one. I'll throw it over to you.
Okay. Yeah. So education. Well, first let me go back to microaggression, because I'm in my 20s, and I don't meet a lot of other people in their 20s that are working in business intelligence, or just dealing with corporate employees, working with C-level business users. So I get a lot of microaggression when it comes to being young in IT. And you immediately look at me, you know that I'm Black, you know that I'm a woman. And so we've talked about being Black and being a woman in IT. So those are things that we are all familiar with. We know that we struggle with those things, but being young, that's a different, I think we don't talk about that a lot. And there is discrimination against age, especially in the workplace. And a lot of the microaggression comes when coworkers or people that I'm working with or working for, all these people, they think that I'm not smart enough to know something because I haven't been in the industry long enough, or my thoughts don't count because I'm young and maybe I'm not developed. I don't know what they're thinking, but all of that stuff is offensive. It's offensive because if I'm there in a room with you and I'm in that meeting, then I have a place to be there, and whatever I say, it's a part of the conversation. So, and the way I handle those things, I don't feed aggression with aggression, but I do mention after the talk, to the side, like Shantara mentioned, I do have those conversations with people because everyone has their own personal life. And if you get on a personal level with someone, then they understand that okay, this is the real person. I can talk to this person and I can apologize, or I can tell her why I felt that, she's young, and maybe I can, talk things out with her. But personally, what I've done outside of just talking to those people is I level up. So I advance my own personal knowledge. I learn more, and that's not to prove anything. It's just to pretty much make a different step. I step up from whatever position that was. So when I go into the room next, then I'm probably leading the meeting because I'm coming in with my ideas, and you're forced to listen to me. You're forced to listen to this 27-year-old talk about this technology. Becoming a Power BI queen was not on purpose. When it comes to education, I didn't have the smartphones and computers at home, and I didn't do any of that. My mom still doesn't know what I do. She still doesn't understand, what the heck are you doing, Denisha? She doesn't know. But that's, once you get a certain age, it's up to you to educate yourself. You can't blame society. I know that sounds crazy, but we do have systematic racism, but it takes some point in your life where you have to say, okay, it's on me to learn more. It's on me to become, to break those generational curses. And that's where I became, in my college career, that's where I realized that if I didn't understand what I wanted to do in life, if I didn't make a difference in how I was learning, then I would just fall under the rest of all the Black women and probably been out on the streets, doing whatever that because it's easy. Like Homer mentioned, Section 8 is easy to get. Government assistance is huge in the Black community. It's easy. I made an effort to never get government assistance, to become the smartest version of me I can be, So with Power BI, when I was in college, still not going home to computers, I stay on campus a little longer. I find those professors that I can talk to and I can relate to, and I find those things that I like. And so when I was in college, and a lot of people know my story, but I had lots of internships, and I tutored SQL for a really long time. And I didn't know that's what I wanted to do. I like SQL and I like data modeling. And I took an internship that was Power BI. Before Power BI was available, they were testing Power BI, and I love Power BI so much. I loved it so much. I just stuck with it, and I started to teach myself Power BI, and then I just, grew with the application. And that's, I think I try to, with my mentees, I try to tell them, you can't seek outside for inside help. You can't seek, ask anyone else for help if you're not giving it to yourself. So, when it
Hey,
comes to education, I think, it is important that we have the equality and the equity, but equity is hard to discuss when it comes to equity. We're talking about, being able to all start at the starting line. Like, we're not starting at the same starting line as everyone else. So we have to give ourselves those resources that's gonna give us that boost so we can kind of, I know you guys play Super Mario, when you go through a little thing and you like boost up, we have to give ourselves that boost so we can get ahead of the game.
Hey, Denisha, that's some great analogies there. I think someone's I don't know, knows about your involvement in the virtual group, and
Hey,
this is quite a long question, so
okay.
I'll come to you with it first. It'll probably take me about 30 seconds or so to read.
Okay.
It might be a bit too specific, I'm not sure. Can you, well, I'll come to you afterwards, so then maybe we'll move on to Shantira, but I'll just read the question. I've been reading some books on race recently, and two in particular have really struck a chord with me. How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi, and So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijoma Olu. These two authors seem to disagree on the subject of whether the word racism means simply race-based discrimination or race-based discrimination by a white person against a person of color. Kendi favors the former definition, while Olu favors the latter, and both make pretty compelling arguments in support of their positions. What are your opinions on the subject? Now, I don't know if you guys on the panel are familiar with those two books or those two authors, but I guess, can you give us your view if you're not?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
So this is something, actually this conversation comes up a lot for me and just within my personal communities, because, we hear racism and we do think white against black just because of what we've experienced. It's a lot we've experienced when it comes to being a black person. And if you're in America, you know the history. If you outside of America, then you probably know the history too, because it was just that intense. So when it comes to racism, for me, racism is race, discrimination against a race. That's what the word means. So we can't change the word because that's what it means. We just see that racism happens more so white against black, Mexican against black, like really against black. So, and that's just me being a black person, because I've been in the subject of racism by a Mexican person, so racism is just that, it's just heightened racism when it comes to Black America. And that's mainly because of the systematic racism. So, and Black people can be racist. We can. If I sit here and say all kinds of things about white people, that's a racist comment. Like, that's racist because I'm discriminating against a white person. But that's just less likely to happen in the Black community, I think, in America, because we experience racism at a systematic level. So systematic racism is hard to be beat. You can't really beat a systematic racism because it's most of the time, like Shantara mentioned earlier, people don't know they're being racist because it's just a common like communication. It's regular, it's normal, So we're really trying to change the normal. That's what we're trying to do. So yes, racism can be always. I agree with the book that says racism is any, discrimination against race, because that's what it is. It's just we as Black people, they should talk. I think racism and systematic racism should be separate. That should be separate because, systematic racism, you can't tell me that a white person is being, they're being discriminated against at a systematic level. Like, that's just not, I want to hear that argument because I don't see that happening, So I think when we talk about racism, we do need to talk about at a, systematically being racist, because those are the things that we need to, try to figure out how we can change.
Yep. Great points there. Great points. I wonder if Shantira is familiar with any of them two books, or can just give us her view on those two statements that the questioner brought up.
Sure. Yes. One, I am familiar with both of the books and the arguments around the definition of racism. I'm going to tend to lean towards what Denisha was saying as far as racism being, it can be more than just, black, white. It definitely can be against all races. It can be, people have experienced it in different ways. And when we're talking about racism, you have to consider the person in which it's, giving their definitions, because racism and all of these discussions around our culture and our biases, that's all based on our experiences. And someone who's had experiences where there has been multiple white against black, of course, they're going to see that way, because that's been their world. And then there are some that may have seen, like Denisha was saying, she's experienced Mexican against black and things of, and vice versa. So, that perspective is going to make her lean towards and even myself lean towards the different races. It's not just black, white. It can be all and different. And our experiences tend to dictate, how we define it. Our experiences dictate what we consider to be safe conversations and safe spaces to have them. I mean, for me, even kind of going back a little bit into the conversation we were having about education, I was one of those young kids that were labeled as at risk, because I was I wasn't in an affluent neighborhood. I didn't grow up in a family where we had a lot, but thankfully, I was blessed with a mother who said, you can do whatever you want. And I was able to start, just really learning on my own and starting to prove everyone wrong who felt like I was going to stay in that neighborhood or not be able to climb my ladders. And when I graduated from Texas A&M, and the first place I went was NASA, and stayed there for 13 years. It was like, oh, okay. So I was able to change perspectives of different people, because their experience was, you stay here, you stay in this neighborhood, you don't get to move on. But thankfully for me, I was able to open doors and be able to change the perspective. So when people started to see, what diversity, inclusion, equity looks like, it looks different. But at the same time, that racism definition started to change for me too, because I started to see it in a totally different, view. I mean, where I worked, my tires were slashed, and they made no qualms about telling me why. It was very clear why, because not only was I a young woman working in an environment where I was 23 working with the average man of 58 years old, I was a young black woman. And how dare you have a car that looks better than mine? I was told that, and no one was fired. So, those types of perspectives will change what I see when I hear racism. I immediately go back to that example in my mind, even before I start to think of it being something different. That has been the one big experience that's dictated my definition of racism.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very interesting and thought-provoking story there, Shantira. Sorry to hear that. We've probably got about half an hour to go, and I got a question coming. I think this is more based that I don't want to split things up, more based at the male panelists. So again, I'll just read the question. It's about 4 lines long. Very curious whether the type of microaggressions that the male presenters have experienced differs from the microaggressions mentioned by Shantira and Denisha earlier. Yeah, interesting question. Maybe I'll move on and bring Hasham in and maybe hear his perspectives on that question before moving on to Adriano.
Okay, so this is one of the very nice questions. Like, male do face the same kind of microaggressions. I even had to hear that because usually I work with the CIO and the directors level in the BI industry. So we face microaggressions very often, even hourly basis as well. So sometimes when the mood is not right, you might hear these words that, okay, I don't want to see your face. They will go up to that extent as well. And considering that, what your opinion is, like, I always feel like data professionals and BI professionals are at the very front of microaggression, because they deal with the decision-making tier. And when they provide their honest opinion, or their dashboards or their reports or their perspective, data perspective, they provide the direction which does not align with the view of the leadership. So they will definitely hear these comments, and these are very harsh comments. Some of this I cannot hear, actually share here as well. But data professional, that's why I have a question with other panelists as well. Like, because as a young data professional, you come into the field, and if you have been bogged down by these microaggressions that, okay, like a lot of the time your reports will show that the company is on decline, or your business is not growing. So you will definitely hear the next statement is like, can we just remove this thing? So what is then having all the data practices in place that which is which is highlighting your deficiency in the business? If we just remove that particular matrix, then we are just twisting and we are actually faltering. So as a data professional, you need to be honest, you need to provide your own technical perspective, which might not align with the business leadership as well. So you need to be there, you need to stand up, and you can say, so later on, if the business leadership has enough vision, they will understand what you are trying to advocate and where you are leading. So many of the times what you see is like young professionals, like they are just bogged down by these microaggressions, and they will just change those things, and what it will neither benefit the person, the data professional, or it will neither benefit the business. So this is like I always speak up about, like, okay, if somebody has to say something, if you are making a purchase decision based on some vendor preferences, so we need to be honest, we need to provide unbiased opinion. Even I'm with Microsoft with like more than 15 years, like I have been doing Microsoft consultancy products consultancies. So even if I have to choose some other vendor, I will go with that vendor just based on the technical expertise. Like this, it does not have to be like I'm always biased with Microsoft or towards Microsoft. So you need to provide your unbiased. So this is like, as a data professional, you need to learn. I would hear like what other professionals, other panelists have to say on this.
Yeah.
Like how do they face and how do they handle and how they will teach young.
Yep. Interesting. I guess we've all got our own biases, whatever they are. So I'll move on and ask Andriano this a similar sort of question, and just throw in an additional one that's come through on a similar line about, do you have any examples where you've had to speak up against bias, either based on racial identity or anything else? But so if we could maybe throw that question in along with maybe your experiences of microaggression, and do they differ from the other panelists?
My perspective may differ to the extent of I see more of people's behavior as a result of culture. Cultural meaning, it can be from where you live, how you're grown up, what you're exposed to, which may couple and or relate to the, programming, whether you are being programmed via your parents, your school, the media itself, and your ability to really sit down and ask the right questions. Principally nowadays, where some may claim, oh, they are confused. And I fear that people giving away to noise and not giving themselves their right to reflect and stop and really reflect without any of the noise, which is not that hard to come to a strong, solid conclusion if one chooses to. Now, how does it ties up to microaggressions? Why I say that is the kind of the fundamental, but that will tie to one's mindset. A mindset coupled with the cultural factor will lead people to come into some assumptions that may say are conclusions without really base that on true facts and or understanding that those facts may be affected or led to by some other factors. For example, when we talk about education, if one comes from let's say a weaker education where the parents don't support them, the community don't support them, where you go to school and your teachers say you're worth of nothing. So how do you expect that individual to be able to really grow up, even become a teenager when one goes through that period of time? How can I say? It can be more influenced than others or build their own personality as they become an adult. So that person, when they become even as a young adult, to make a choice becomes fearful, whether you know, oh, I don't think that is for me because I'm told that. When you look through the media, they don't have anywhere like any TV show, for example, to say, hey, I'm an astronaut. By the way, if you need an example, check out this week. I think it's on the 14th. NASA will launch and check out who are the astronauts. You're going to see a great diversity there.
Yeah.
So how does it comes into, and that will lead to bias, because one will be more biased like, hey, I don't see anybody like you. I don't think you can do it, whether you are young, older, from a different culture. So those are different factors that people in society are exposed to and, or how can I say, push into a belief, and they adopt without stopping and really asking themselves what is right and what's really behind this. Who is driving that message? Is it true or not? And how can you make a change? A change you can make by really giving a chance to listen to other people who, if you look around, they all want the same thing as you do. And then and that's what people forget. And that takes care of the microaggression and the bias as well. I think that would address your question. Let me know if not.
Yeah, I think so. So I might just move on to another question we've got. This one particularly addresses our friend Homer, Killer DBA, but I might mix this up a little bit and aim this question at Kellen. Just bring her into it. It's basically about using names and nicknames and titles, but I'll just read the question out and aim it at Kellen. Hopefully you don't mind. If I work with Homer, I think I would, at least initially, be uncomfortable calling him Killer DBA in a work setting. And then it goes on to ask about Homer's experiences. But I just wondered, Colin, how do you feel about that in an inclusion perspective, you know, using nicknames that might be controversial? Have you got a view on that?
And that's posted towards me?
No, that's not posted towards anyone. It's posted towards Killer DBA. I'll come to Killer DBA in a minute. But I guess the crux of the question seems to be, I don't know, would you feel uncomfortable using maybe controversial nicknames towards other people in the workplace? I guess maybe the person's getting that the phrase Killer DBA might I don't know, be a bit controversial.
You know, I was called Goth Princess for a while and Kevlar for a while, and you know, the princess thing I wasn't too keen on. I really wasn't when I was younger, so I can understand that. One of the things that kind of comes to mind as you start talking about Killer DBA, you know, this whole thing. We have a friend that's in tech he's 6'5". He's a big dude, and he happens to be Black. And my husband was in an elevator embankment with him one day when they were at work, and the elevator doors opened up and this woman saw him and she went, oh my. And she stepped back and didn't get into the elevator with them. And the doors shut, and my husband looked at him and said, does that happen often? He says, every darn time. And the intimidation that they felt just because he was a large Black man was really frustrating to him, that he could not be approached as a human being first and as a professional and being in a building. And I think that goes along with that nickname. When you start talking about that Killer DBA, that somebody automatically resonances, says, you know, oh, is that a rap name? Do you hear that? Homer, do you hear anybody ever say that? Because I know I used to get the whole goth thing that people were like, that's not really that professional, Kellen. Do you get that at all, or any of this that I've heard from some of my friends?
I get people, when I get introduced, they say, hey, we have this rapper, and which makes me laugh all the time, because I do sing. I'm
goth light, so I get this.
Yeah, and I do rap in my songs, because what I found is that I can get more of the technical terms in if I rap them. And so it just makes me laugh and giggle whenever I'm introduced as a rapper, because I didn't see myself in that light, but that's what I do. So I don't blame them for saying. So it's just funny when I hear that. But as far as what the initial question was, Yeah, I've never called that in the workplace unless it's, within fun within my coworkers and peers. When I started that name back in, oh my gosh, 98, 99, it was surrounded around the whole term killer, dude. That's killer, which means awesome or impressive. But it had a double meaning because it was my gamer tag with Halo, and I'm a DBA. And yeah, you kill. I don't like we tell my boys, my sons, when they're playing, you're not killing them, you're just making them. Anyway, we try to stay away from that term. So I can understand how it's a rough term. Kill a DBA. It's like, what? Kill a DBA? That's not cool. I've heard people say that too. But it's just a term that's stuck, and it's a long story with that. But in the corporate space, I'm usually not called that at all, unless my immediate team is mentioning a song that I like, my SQL Server 2019 song. They'll say, "Oh, Killer DBA, that was awesome," but they usually just call me Homer. And I wouldn't expect people to call me Killer or Killer DBA at work.
But
You
it
know,
is branding too.
yeah.
I myself, when I was being called, goth DBA and all these other things, for me, I found people that weren't taking me very seriously.
Mm,
They thought,
mhm,
I mean, not that this is a bad thing, they thought I was a project manager, and
mhm.
they kept bypassing me for my technical capabilities and going to my DBAs. I was the lead DBA.
Wow.
And I got upset about this and went to my manager at that time and said, I'm tired of being passed over for my technical challenges. And my
Mm,
boss just kind of looked up at me and he says, then why are you dressing like a project manager? And I said, what? And I was in a pencil skirt and the heels and the normal stuff. So the next week I came in and my fingernails were painted black. And
oh
people
wow.
were so taken aback by this, they started asking me questions too, because they were curious about what was going on. So the week after that, I started in combat boots and so on and so forth. And I've always stated that I would not recommend that to anyone, but branding that kind of sets you apart does help in the way of the technical world when you are somebody that may be a minority in this situation. And I don't know if you found that that helped you with being Killer DBA, that you had a brand, that you were owning who you are and saying, this is who I am, and I am part of this community, and I'm going to own it.
I definitely struggled with it initially when I made the first song, SQL Server 2016. I didn't know if I would be taken seriously. I thought there might be backlash. And when Microsoft reached out to me and said, "Hey, you're gonna have to have thick skin if we support you and put your video out and have you come and perform on our campus at SQL Saturday and things like that." And I understood that there might be a few people who may think that I'm mocking this technology, or not taking it as seriously as they take it.
Hmm.
When in actuality, it's a passion that I wanted to delve into, which one of my goals was to get me to pass Summit, which it did. That was one of my goals. I said, you know what? Maybe this is my ticket, because
I,
I've been
I,
passed up from
I-
coming to
and
the
it's and it's great to see you pass something. I'm going to go and look up this song. I've never heard this song. I know Rob Farley a few years ago back performed on stage a song he made up, but I
Yeah.
want to hear this one. It's
Marty, I have over 20 songs. One is dedicated to women in IT, a
right.
big
We want to hear
sub.
that one. That
Yeah,
one as well.
yeah,
You're going to
several,
have
but
all new hits now on all your YouTube. Is it on like
Okay.
awesome.
YouTube?
You
Okay.
you you gotta
YouTube,
put in your plug there.
yeah, Spotify, YouTube, all digital platforms, iTunes, definitely YouTube. Killer, Killa DBA, and yeah, I did struggle with that, Kellen, to be honest. But I'm glad you stepped in your truth. You put on your black boots and your black fingernails, and you just you were you. And
Yep.
so I
Yeah.
figured I'm
Have
gonna
to.
be me. I'm gonna be the mayor in my office, and I don't care if going back to microaggressions. I don't care if my director or manager is against it. Which luckily and lately they've embraced it. They love the Killer DBA idea and stuff. But I have been in a situation where a manager, he may be watching, and it's okay. Um, we were at an event outside of work, and it was just he and I, and he told me that his religion caused, his religion, in his religion, they take like a pilgrimage and they do something at a certain age and they kind of go out into the world. And he told me that he just didn't know any black people and was never around them. And he found himself in a situation where he was, and he said some things that he said he should have gotten hurt by saying these things. He said, but a black man kind of swooped in and saved him and said, look, he didn't know. He doesn't know, guys, stop. And he said that was an experience for him that helped him come to some understanding. But to me, it was more like, why are you telling me this? Do you really have an understanding? Have you really progressed? And how far are you in this pilgrimage to understanding Black people? Because like you rate me for reviews, dude. So I don't know how I felt about it. So I'm just going back to the microaggression thing and how people can perceive and judge you based on you being your true self. I like music, and I make music about data and stuff, which could be weird to some people. And
I think that's great. You can get two of your passions flowing through that. So I'll just bring it around.
Really quick on that note, I want to kind of say something. So so Kellen mentioned, she did mention a really good thing with names and branding, and I branded myself the Queen of Power BI, and I think, well, I know that's benefited me a lot, especially like before I walk into a room, people know, oh, that's the Queen. Like in most jobs that I go into, people just call me Queen or the Queen or TBI Queen. And so walking into a room and people already Googled me or they look me up, then that kind of gives me like a confidence boost. Like, my middle name is Queen. So kind of, it feels really good to be called Queen in a room of people who don't know me, honestly, And so one time I was in a meeting with the CTO and the CMO and some developers, and I walked in, the CTO said, I heard you were the Queen. And that made me feel so good, to hear from the CTO. It set me up for like, just to win the meeting. And I think that helps, So I have kind of an adverse experience of just, having a brand that helps me out.
It does help break that glass ceiling or any of the glass floor, any of it. I think branding is extremely important. Mm-hmm. And if we go back to microaggressions, one of the things that I know I've talked about in my, my D&I book has to do with the death by 1,000 pinpricks, that, those microaggressions build up over a period of time. And, because my focus area is more women in tech, that I noticed that the women were disappearing, as those pinpricks built up. And if they didn't have the support system, if they didn't have the allies, the sponsorship to help support them, they just disappeared. They went to other industries. Do you see that with people of, of diversity backgrounds and race, and that this is happening there too? Because I myself am very much outside of that, and I always worry about that. As I'm mentoring folks and trying to help out more, it's something that I worry.
Yeah, that is a great point. I come to you in a minute, and then maybe can we bring Shantira in? Someone has made a comment, and that's like very, very great time. And they've said, have there been any impactful stories of how someone could be an ally in the workplace? So I don't know, that just seemed a good time to bring that in. So we'll hear a bit more off you, Denisha, and then maybe you could pass it over to Shantira.
Okay. So I think company culture is important, and some company cultures, they're just used to having one Black person or maybe no Black people. So they get used to saying these things around the workplace that are offensive, but no one's there to tell them to tell them that it's offensive. And so that's to Kellen's comment. So if I were to start with a company and I'm the only Black person, which I'm 27 and I've experienced that all the time just with companies, and I'm a consultant. So I work with different companies and conferences, and mainly everything I go to, I'm the only Black person or just one of 3 or something. So, I experience the culture of the conference or the culture of the event or the company is just to be like white people or like white focus. So people will make comments or something about race, and I have to step in and say that it's not right. But you shouldn't have. I think we should get to a point where we shouldn't have to do that. You should read enough books. You should watch enough TV. There's so much out there for you to know what's right and what's wrong. When it comes to allies in the workplace, my manager friend mentor. She's all these things to me. I really hope she's watching because without her, like I don't know where I would be right now. I would still be trying to figure things out. But she's a white woman and she's from Seattle. Her name is Jandy Richards. Shout out to Jandy. And she is an ally for minority groups. And she taught me so much as being an ally and taught me how, you know, you can do that in a culture, in a company environment. And what she's did for me is she's pretty much been the one to introduce me as the leader. So if I walk into a room and she's my manager now, well, she was my manager, and it's my meeting or I'm the SME, you know, she's a white woman who's the director of BI of this team, so everyone respects her, you know. And if she introduced me as the leader or the lead, then she gives that respect, you know. So if you know you're respected in the workplace and you know that people are respecting you, is, you know, you have that familiar face and you're, you know, a white woman, a white man, you're in that, you identify as that group who's not underrepresented. You could be an ally by, you know, mentoring someone or just making sure that everyone in the room notices this person, you know. So if you're the manager or you're the lead, you know, you have to go around the room and introduce everyone. Start with the one Black person in the room. Like that one thing like means so much, you know. Start with the one Black person in the room. That if you introduce everyone and then introduce the one Black person last, maybe you didn't think of that, but that's still, you know, in a way that makes us feel, you know, a little belittled because we're the only Black person in the room. Now we're the last to get introduced. We're probably gonna be the last to speak.
That's great, Shantara. Sorry, I'm just like cognizant. We've only got 5 minutes left, so can I just bring Shantara in and then maybe go to Hasham on the same thing, Shantara?
Sure. Just to answer Kellen's question about seeing minority women with the leaving the technology space, but actually leaving the workplace. There was a study done by Lean In, Sheryl Sandberg's organization, that actually talked about a lot of minority women are actually just leaving corporate America and starting their own businesses because they're tired of having to fight this fight. And so that, you know, just answers that question. But there's a lot of good data around that because Sheryl just released the second part of that study this past month with the Wall Street Journal. But to answer the question about allyship, I've often talked about the one ally that I've had my entire career, Doug Westby Gibson. He was a white man that started with me when I worked at NASA and now has continued to be not just an ally, but also a friend now for these years, where it was little tiny things that he did, like taught me how to ask the right questions in a meeting with all astronauts and space and aeronautical engineers, you know, how to lead conversations, how to deal with some of the microaggressions. And he did that in ways that didn't seem like it was being taught. You know, it was just very natural. And that's the one thing that I like to talk to a lot of my clients about, is trying to figure out how it fits into your natural personality and your relationship. Because being an ally is something that you can't just deem yourself an ally. You have to be in a relationship with someone where they trust you. There's shared perspectives and shared respect there. So I've had the opportunity, and I know what that feels like to have a strong ally in a man, and an actual white man in corporate America. And it has helped to shape my perspective on this topic.
That's great. That's great. I love to hear that answer. That was great. I'm sure other people did. Very quickly, I think we've got about 3 minutes left. Can I just bring Hasham in? Do you have any views on that, or indeed anything that we talked about here today?
I wanted to respond on Kellen when she was mentioning women in tech leaving when they did not provide enough. And this is the same fear which I have. And that's why I always support whatever the newcomers coming around the community, either the speaker or data professionals or BI consultants, like they are not provided enough space within the community so they can grow. Because I remember way back 15 years, I was being guided by one of the industry's tech experts like Ernie Ronald, I can name Erland. So all of them were MVPs that time, and those were like book authors, and they were sit with us like on the forums. They guided us, they teached us the best practices, and shows us the path that, okay, here you can go on and become. But for the new professionals which are breaking into the data and BI field, I think this is like a barrier for them. Like most I see, even for male and for female as well, it's for both gender. Like it's more of a age discrimination, where the older ones are not supporting the young professionals to actually elevate their career, become into the new horizon. Actually, I was being invited to write something, a technical book, at the age of maybe when I was not even in my 30s. But I did not see this happening at this age, because I'd see nobody is inviting someone as age group between 20, 25, 20, 28 to write technical books. They even did not consider somebody at this young age. So that's why we need to provide more support to the young professionals and bring new faces to the community that they can come along. That's my fear that we need to work on.
That's great. That's great. Thanks a lot. So we are drawing to a close. I think we've got about a minute or two left. Adriano is right in the center of my screen, so I might give him the last word. Have you got any views on allies or anything we've talked about here that you maybe further want to share?
Yeah, absolutely. I truly believe that one needs to remember that where he or she is or will always be, because it took, as Maya Angelou said, something related to, I'm here as one, but I come as 10,000. So they're always reflecting a group of several individuals who made it possible for him or her to be there. Second thing I'd like to touch up is to, when one is discriminated, also both the aggressor, the one being aggressor, being the victim in the situation, needs to remember that what leads many times to that behavior comes from the cultural background, the fear, and the mindset the person is, and that leads to the bias, and to proceed accordingly to what is available at the location where they're at, whether it's the work or outside. And to those who are aggressors, they need to really consider and reflect onto their behavior, because sometimes as outlined, it may be something that is not voluntary and unknown because how they were brought up and what they believe, which may be quite likely wrong. But also, be humble and understand they may be wrong, and adjust accordingly. Thank you.
Yep. No, that's great. That's great. So we've been going 75 minutes. I'm pretty sure we're out of time. This has been a great session to moderate. It's certainly got its challenges moderating an online session, and just like to thank all the panelists. They've been great, very well behaved. There's been no butting in and talking over people or anything like that. I think that is excellent. So thank you very much for that. And I guess I'd just like to say to the folks that are watching, that everyone here is open and approachable. Obviously, we're not at an in-person event, it's all online, but I guess we're open to be approached online. And please feel free to talk to myself, to Kellen, to Homer, to Adriano, to Denisha, Shantira, and Hasham. You've been great. It's been fabulous spending the last 75 minutes with you, and I hope you and all our audience have a fantastic week. Take it easy.
Thanks for